Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
This is Mr. Chris Claremont, a legend.
Melanie goes,
Tired.
Happy Monday, all you mentees! Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition. That's right, I'm back home and back with some overviews. So let's go ahead and get started with your advanced look at the Superior Spider-Man Omnibus Volume 1 from Marvel Comics. And welcome back, everybody. Now, before going any further, I do want to thank David Gabriel, the fine folks in Marvel, for sending us an advanced copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on July 11th or 12th, depending on where you get your books. However, some people may have already gotten their copies because I saw retailers already send out pre-order copies. So that usually happens when there's a holiday. Sometimes the distribution centers send out books way early in advance, sometimes a week in advance. So you may have seen those, but the official release date is July 11th and 12th. All right, it is finally here. Superior Spider-Man Omnibus. Volume 1, not just Omnibus. I think when I announced this as Superior Spider-Man Omnibus. I can't remember. Maybe it was a Volume 1. But let's talk about the book itself. Let's look at the cover here. We have a cover by Ryan Stegman. This is the standard edition cover, the one that's going to be available everywhere. On the left-hand side is your direct market cover. That one's applied by Joe Quesada. And of course, there is a difference in the spines. So that's something to keep in mind. Depending if you want the picture on the spine more because you put it on your shelf and that's the way it's stored, and you rather have that picture of the direct market or the picture of the standard edition. I know sometimes that actually drives some people to buy a certain book is the actual spine, but everything else underneath is the exact same. So let's shift the focus back to this. We have this cover again by Ryan Stegman, and it shows a new costume for the Iraq Knight. The spine. So we have the Marvel Omnibus logo up there, the Superior Spider-Man logo, Superior Spidey's face, Volume 1. Love that. We'll talk about what could be in a Volume 2 in a little bit. And then the back of the book. And the retail price, $125. And rated teen plus. I'm gonna actually talk about the book, and usually I like to keep it spoiler free. Let's look underneath the dust jacket while I talk about this. And I say usually because, people have not read this stuff and they want to go into it completely blind. Here are the flaps. But with this, I feel like to even give you the premise or the pitch, I have to talk about the Dying Wish storyline, which sets up Superior Spider-Man and what Superior Spider-Man is about. So just in case some minor spoilers going in to actually talk about the setup, not going heavy into details as to how things happen or played out. Here's what the inside the dust jacket looks like, and it's a negative of Superior Spider-Man just hanging upside down. Almost feels like the texture, it seems like it, but it feels like the texture of the book should be like a textbook, if you will, just because of the detail on the outlines, or actually the costume right here just feels like it should have that textbook feel, but it doesn't. It's got a smooth finish to it. All right, we're going to crack this book open, talk about the pitch again, going into minor spoilers, showing off the amazing, no pun intended, because it is Superior, artwork here by some great artists. And of course, look at the back matter and then talk about the build of the book. Oh, and also do a quick comparison to the 3 oversized hardcovers, because this has been released in complete collection and trade paperback, standard size hardcover, and in 3 oversized hardcovers, and all of that stuff is out of print right now. This is the only way to get the whole story that's still in print. So I'll be doing a little comparison in a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and crack this book open. You have some black end sheets right there. Another negative image of Superior Spider-Man, Omnibus Volume 1, and then the credit pages right here. So this tells you exactly who worked on each of these issues, including the artist, the inkers, the colorist, and who did the covers for the particular issues. So most of this, of course, written by Dan Slott. I'm sure a lot of people watching this video already knew that. But Christos Gage did help out because sometimes when Dan Slott would fall behind on schedule and deadlines, Christos Gage was his go-to guy to come in and help him write the script or co-plot stories. They've been working together for years. I'm a big fan of Christos Gage. As a matter of fact, Christos Gage ended up taking over Superior Spider-Man for the second volume, which could be collected in an Omnibus Volume 2 one day. But for the most part, it is Dan Slott. So it kicks off with Amazing Spider-Man 698. So this collects Amazing Spider-Man 698 to 700 and Superior Spider-Man 1 through 31 and annuals 1 and 2. Now, the important part about that is that it is Superior Spider-Man from 2013. The second series was from 2018. All right, so what's going on here? Why does this collect Amazing Spider-Man 698 to 700 and then it jumps into Superior Spider-Man? Again, going into some minor spoiler territory, but just in case you don't want to know anything, go ahead and put me on mute. Check out the back matter, the extras. All right, so what happens? What's going on here? Why is it Amazing Spider-Man? So the storyline Dying Wish is kind of the prelude to the Superior Spider-Man story, but all of it really started around issue 600. In issue 600 of Amazing Spider-Man, you find out that Doc Ock is dying, and he's dying because of pretty much the years catching up to him of fighting superheroes, primarily Spider-Man, his arch nemesis. And he is dying an ugly death. Like, his body is rotting and he's fighting it. So Spider-Man has to face the fact that, one of his arch nemesis is about to die. So it kicks off with a normal day for Spider-Man in issue 698. He's looking at the mirror, wondering how he got a particular scar. He's having some flashbacks of some important moments in his life. And then at the very end, he gets called to the Raft. And the Raft, of course, is where Marvel Universe, along with the Vault, is where they keep a lot of the supervillains. And in the Raft, he visits Doc Ock. And it is here that you learn that Doc Ock somehow has managed to switch bodies with Spider-Man. He's able to put his psyche into Spider-Man's body and Spider-Man's psyche into Doc Ock's rotting, dying body. So that's what kicks off Dying Wish. And I'm not going to go into detail as to how this is done, but it is a really interesting story. It's goofy as hell if you take a step back and think about what happens. It feels like a Silver Age story, but it's a story that's been done several times in the past, but not to this extreme, if you will. When this was coming out, when Dying Wish was coming out, people were just losing their minds. Like, people were swearing off Spider-Man. They were like, I went through Sin's Past. I went through One More Day, and now they're going to do this to my boy Peter Parker. I'm out. I'm done collecting Spider-Man comics. How dare Marvel do this? And I think we all knew where it was going because just the way the internet works. I'm sure most of you probably know what I mean. It was revealed weeks earlier what was going to happen at the big climax issue of 700. So in issue 700... everything finally catches up to Doc Ock's body. He breaks out of prison. He's trying to tell people that, hey, that's not Peter Parker inside of Spider-Man's body. That's Doc Ock. I'm Spider-Man, but nobody believes him. And eventually, what ends up happening is Doc Ock's body with Peter Parker's psyche in it dies. So when he dies, he tells Doc Ock, who is now Spider-Man, inside of... it's going to get a little complicated, but just stay with me. Who makes Doc Ock keep a promise to keep them safe, all the people around him. And Doc Ock swears that he will be a good Spider-Man. He will be a superhero. He says goodbye to Peter Parker, who again died inside of Doc Ock's body. And he swears that he will become a better Spider-Man than Peter Parker ever was. That he will become the Superior Spider-Man. You get a small glimpse as to what the new costume will look like. Giuseppe Camuncoli drawing this backup story here, and Humberto Ramos, of course, drawing the main title right there. And then we kick off with Superior Spider-Man, issue number 1, drawn by Ryan Stegman, who at this time had come from, Scarlet Spider. He had drawn just a few Marvel titles, but this is kind of the title that put him on the map. And eventually, of course, this is the gentleman that would take over the artist duties on Venom. But this is where he got his start. So Do you remember when I just said, like, the idea of them switching bodies was ridiculous? It's been done over and over again. And when you start reading Dying Wish, the 3-issue prelude, you start to think, okay, this is going to be so uh, easy to figure out what's going to happen, right? Doc Ock is going to pretend to be good for a while, but he's a bad guy, so he's going to be doing evil things. As a matter of fact, the way that he looks at some of the supporting cast, you already get this creepy factor from him. But that's not what makes this great. What makes this series great is the question of morality and the philosophical look at superheroes and what it means to be a superhero. Because while he's a bad guy, after Peter dies, he promises that he's going to be good. And what he feels or what he notices in his body is that he gets all the memories of Peter Parker. Like, he lives through the memories of Peter Parker. However, he doesn't realize that every time he thinks back of a particular memory, the ghost, if you will, there's a little bit of twist to this particular story right here. The ghost of Peter Parker appears inside of his brain and kind of feels like the Jiminy Cricket, or that guiding light, or your conscience, if you will, keeping Doc Ock on a straight path, making him change his mind about certain things. Because when you have Doc Ock in this role of Spider-Man, he starts to think, why hasn't Peter Parker done this already? Why hasn't Peter Parker killed this villain? This villain is going to keep coming back and hurting and killing people. I'm just going to fix this. I'm going to kill him. Now that question is in here, of course, and the answer will surprise you where it goes. And that's where the Avengers step in, because the Avengers are like, hey, we notice you've been doing some dark stuff, but nobody really knows that Doc Ock is inside of Peter Parker's body, or Spider-Man's body. So it's a really interesting story, and I love the way that Dan Slott handled it. This is why a lot of us feel like this is Dan Slott's magnum opus on his run on Spider-Man, which really surprised me that they decided to go with Superior Spider-Man as the first omnibus during this particular era. But it makes sense, because the other beauty of this book is that this can be read as a brand new jumping on point for the character of Spider-Man. Because you don't need to be bogged down by the history of Peter Parker and who he is and all the things that he's been through to really enjoy this. All you need to know is Peter Parker was a good guy, dressed up like Spider-Man. Doc Ock switched minds with him, and now Doc Ock is living as Peter Parker and is Spider-Man, Superior Spider-Man. That's it. He gets his own supporting cast, like Anna, through these pages, and I love that relationship between him and Anna. She's a really awesome character that I'm glad is still around. And he gets his own villains, and of course there's also returning villains too, like the Vulture, the Sinister Six, but it's an interesting take on the Sinister Six. You have the return of Venom. There's the whole, I will talk about the binding here in a little bit, by the way. There's the whole Spider-Man 2099 event here. This is so awesome. Like, it was one great story after another. And like I said, yes, it feels like a stupid, hokey storyline, but it makes it so deep. Dan Slott and his creative team made it so good and so addictive. Like, you just wanted to keep reading it. And it's a book that you'll read cover to cover. It's a lot of fun. Now, the one downside that I can see people complaining about maybe might be the artwork, because I've seen some of my viewers say, that Humberto Ramos artwork, that anime artwork, that cartoony stuff is not for me. And I feel like out of most of the Omni collections with Spider-Man's name in it, this probably has that type of cartoony art style, but I happen to love. You have Giuseppe Camuncoli in here. You have Ryan Stegman, like I mentioned. You have Humberto Ramos. You also have Marcos Martin and Javier Rodriguez doing a couple of issues too. But it's got that definite anime feel to it. It has that cartoony flair that I respect people's opinion. Some people cannot stand, so if that's not your cup of tea, then maybe, yeah, that's why I do these type of overviews, so you can check out the artwork and see for yourself. Now, of course, what is a Spider-Man story without his biggest nemesis coming in? And that is the Goblin King. Once known as the Green Goblin, now goes by the Goblin King. There's this whole Goblin Nation arc that kind of wraps up this particular story. But you can find out for yourself. There's a lot of freaking hilarious. There's a few moments in here that I just could not stop laughing because even if you don't know the history of Doc Ock and Peter Parker, you have to keep in mind that Doc Ock is remembering all these things about Peter Parker, all these memories. But also, Peter Parker's learning about Doc Ock's past and from his memories because they kind of share one conscience. And like I said, there's a little bit of twist with that, and you can find out for yourself how it all ends, or if even Peter Parker gets his body back. But the one thing to keep in mind is that Doc Ock and Aunt May dated each other for a while, so you can imagine where that goes, especially if you got your enemy's memories. And oh man, that kind of stuff just cracks me up. You have the Superior Venom storyline in here with the return of Venom. And yes, this is what the artwork looks like. There's a couple of times the Avengers step in and are like, hey, what are you doing there, Superior Spider-Man? And there's always this concern from Doc Ock that somebody's going to figure out that it's him inside of Peter Parker's body. So he sets up all these things around him that kind of keeps people from reading his mind. He sets up these spider bots that I love that because like he handles things so differently than Peter Parker. Like he's got the brain of Peter Parker, the agility. Okay, yes, he has Doc Ock's brain, but Peter Parker's a smart guy, so he thinks to himself, why hasn't Peter Parker done this? And that's because of the great power comes great responsibility. Peter Parker will not cross that line where Doc Ock is like, screw that line, I don't even know where the hell that line is. I'm just gonna go over it. So he creates these little spider bots to kind of keep tabs on the city and the enemies. He has this whole Napoleon Bonaparte type of like mentality when it comes to his enemies. He wants his enemies to kind of fight themselves in a civil war so they're weakened, and then he can come in there and strike to just take them out. And you think, like, yeah, why hasn't Peter Parker done these kind of things? Now, of course, he crosses the line a few times, and you can find out exactly what that means when you're reading here. A couple of shocking moments, and makes you think, wait a minute, if people really think Peter Parker is inside of Spider-Man, then how are they not doing anything about this? And there are some confrontations, of course. But yes, the return of Spider-Man 2099, the Venom storyline, and everything is in here. This is kind of all and done. What I would collect in a volume 2 would probably be the Superior Spider-Man, the second volume series by Christos Gage, the team-up book. I think that lasted 12 issues. And a couple of fill-in issues, including like things like from Spider-Verse. So one thing you're probably asking is, wait a minute, Spider-Verse Omnibus collects Superior Spider-Man 32 and 33. Why aren't those in here? Because those are done not after the stories in here. And that gets a little bit difficult to explain because issues 32 and 33 don't take place after issue 31. They're kind of a flashback storyline, and it's all part of the Spider-Verse books. And the reason they're probably not included in here is because it's a little bit confusing to read without the actual Spider-Verse event. So that's probably why they didn't include it in here. And it could be included in a volume 2. I'm not sure, with a few key issues of Spider-Verse. But the other book I think I would include in there is also the run of Avenging Spider-Man. Because, yeah, for a while it was Doc Ock being Spider-Man in the Marvel Universe. So I think that's all I will say about this book. I think I've praised it. I said it was kind of a standalone story for new readers if you're interested in it. And of course, I've shown off this, to me, spectacular, amazing, web of type of artwork. Yes, of course, I had to throw web of in there. Then do adjective list. All right, let's look at the back matter, and then we'll do a little bit of art comparison, and then talk about the build of the actual omnibus. All right, for all the folks that wanted no type of spoilers, we are now looking at the back matter. All the extras back here, including the variant covers. And there are quite a bit of variant covers drawn by the series artist, drawn by the, at the time, president of Marvel Comics, and then some classic homage covers here. And speaking of classic, I have to talk about these, or this particular picture right here by Steve Ditko. So this was supposed to be the Amazing Fantasy issue 15 cover, but then Jack the King Kirby did that cover, and this was Steve Ditko's take. So this is the finished copy by Steve Ditko and Marcos Martin, with Michael Keller doing the colors and art restoration, I believe. But that was used for the first time on a variant cover, and it was also used as the cover to the Superior Spider-Man Volume 1. So I really appreciated that they did that. big Ditko fan, so I thought it was really cool that they did that in here. Some more variant covers, again by different artists, and some of these artists had nothing to do with the book. Some internal sketches and concept artwork. Character designs are in here. For example, for new characters like Anna, you have the character of Cardiac making a comeback. The Lego. Hey, anybody seen Across the Spider-Verse? Just in case you haven't, movie's fun. Scotty Young piece right there. So like I said, a lot of variant covers, and some of these have nothing to do with what's going inside of the book itself. Here's the concept artwork right here for some of the supporting cast. There's Anna right there, Cardiac making a return, the Jester, and Menace, and Hobgoblin. This is my favorite part that they kept in here. These are the letter pages to issue 700 of Amazing Spider-Man, when things were coming to an end and then was switching over to Superior Spider-Man. Now, it's not just normal folks like us that are fans writing in, and Stan Lee actually answering some of these letters, but also a lot of the creators, a lot of people that have worked on Spider-Man over the years, like editors, artists in here, colorists, inkers, and writers. So that's really cool that they included all of it. This wasn't included in the hardcovers. I'm not sure if they were included in the complete collections, but they were definitely not included in the hardcovers. You have Eric Larson in here, and also Sal Buscema, Kurt Busiek, and J.M. DeMatteis, just to name a few of the creators. Then, of course, issues 1 through 700 of Amazing Spider-Man, so the actual covers. Love when they collect all that stuff. Now, the book has 960 pages. Let's take a look at the binding and then do a little art comparison. So, 960 pages. Here's the eye. This book is printed at the iMac printer. So, first thing we're going to look at is actually, let's go back to the beginning, is some of the light pages to check out what the bleed through looks like. You can see some of the panels coming through. It's not like the thin paper that iMac has put out in the past. It does have a little bit of that dusty feel, but not every page is something I've noticed. It's just sometimes it has that almost like a dirt feel to it. It's probably the inks. But for the most part, it's got a clean feel to it. So it's not every page. Let me see if I can... Actually, I know where to look. So here I think is a perfect example because there's a lot of whites, and you can see like some of the word bubble. What is that? $7.99. I think that's this page right here because of the white here. And then some of the art coming from the other side. So there's a little bit of bleed through. I'm not saying there isn't any. But let's take a look at the way it lays over. So you do have a little bit of gutter loss, like right here. And like I said, I'll do a comparison to the, not the original printing, I'm sorry, the oversized hardcover here in a little bit. But it's very minimal. That actually does a really good job with the way that it lays over, because there are a lot of double page spreads throughout this particular omnibus. I say that as I'm flipping through here, and I can't find a flippin' one. Hold on. Here we go. So like I said, there is minimal gutter loss. Not a big deal to a lot of people, but I did want to point that out for the people that it does bother. Now, let's do a little comparison to that Superior Spider-Man oversized hardcover here. Oh, and the other thing, by the way, before I do, the reading order is perfect in here. They put the annuals exactly where they belong, because sometimes, they keep the annuals in the back. This time around, no, the annuals 1 and 2 are both in there where they're supposed to be read, or where they suggest reading it, and it makes sense because story arcs are completed before the beginning of the annuals. All right. So here on the left-hand side is the oversized hardcover. It's a little bit different because it also has the variant here. But the framing looks very similar to the framing here. Like you have that webbed frame. But it goes all the way down here, whereas here you don't. You lose a little bit of art around there. Just something to keep in mind for people. But yeah, this is white down here, giving you the title of the story. This right here tells you exactly Amazing Spider-Man 698, Dying Wish, Prelude, The Day in the Life. Over here you get a quick recap of Ends of the Earth, which is kind of where everything is set up for Dying Wish. And over here you don't. It just starts off with Dying Wish Part 1. But this is what I wanted to compare. Right here, some of the artwork. So again, this is the oversized hardcover. Paper stock, honestly, is a little bit thicker, just a little bit thicker than that of the Omnibus. So even here you have a little bit of bleed through, but I did wanted to compare the way the books lay over as well. The oversized hardcovers aren't perfect either. You do get some gutter loss right there. There we go. So you can see the whole picture. And as I mentioned, the spreads pages here on the Omnibus, you do get some gutter loss. You have to hold it down to get the whole thing. So about the same. As far as the color, though, I think the color looks pretty similar to that of the oversized hardcover. Maybe just a little bit darker than that of the oversized hardcover. Let me do a comparison of right here, some light pages. So just a little bit more bleed through in the Omnibus than you do have in the oversized hardcover, which also had some bleed through. So yes, a new status quo for Spider-Man. Some of his supporting cast also have a new status quo, but fear not if you're a new reader. It's all easily explained, like the role, like for example, of J. Jonah Jameson throughout the series. But that's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this Omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.
And that was the content, the page count, and build of this Omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking this up, if you've never read it and you're going into it completely blind, knowing the premise and the basis of the story, and if you have read it, what you think about the story. And if you plan on picking up a Volume 2, if they ever decide to make it Volume 2. If you have any questions, leave your questions down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. It's good to be back. Much love.